Hello again, July here with a video about cooking in the RuneScape 1 era, and there is actually more to say about this skill than you would think. Let's begin by saying that there was no X option in RuneScape 1, which made cooking an extremely click-intensive skill because everything had to be cooked manually, so one by one. I think you can imagine what a nightmare that must have been. An extremely big event for the cooking skill was the release of the fishing skill in June of 2001. During the absence of fishing, cooking had to be trained by using dough-based food, which is a lot more annoying to prepare. It's one of the reasons why we don't use dough-based food to train the skill, and people didn't either at that time after the release of fishing, or even in the early years of RuneScape 2. Together with the fact that cooking was extremely click-intensive, the dough-based food requirement meant that the skill wasn't popular at all at first. In fact, food was scarce, and the community, which was all about PvP in RuneScape 1, absolutely required the presence of people who would volunteer to cook food. So as you can imagine, when fishing was eventually released on the 11th of June of 2001, or 6 months after the game's launch, the entire community smiled and thanked the few Jagex mods. The best types of fish available on the release day of the skill were lobster and swordfish. Cooking them was usually done by using the various cooking ranges in RuneScape. Lumbridge was not a popular place for that because, and this might come as a surprise to you, Lumbridge had no bank in RuneScape 1, and in fact even for a long time in RuneScape 2 as well. The cooking gauntlets from the Family Crest quest were released in April of 2002 and ended up becoming a popular item used to reduce the frequency of burning food. The activity of cooking itself was done as part of a bigger image to provide yourself or PKers with food. Important to mention here is that food could not be eaten during combat. Well, sort of. Here's the thing. In RuneScape 1, a so-called 3-round combat system existed that prevented any player from doing anything until 3 rounds of combat had been completed, with 1 round consisting of you attacking once and your opponent retaliating once. And until 3 of those cycles or 3 rounds had been completed, you could not eat or drink. Instead, you were forced by game design to wait until 3 rounds of combat had been completed. More about the unique 3-round combat system can be found in my detailed video about it, so when we are done here you can find the link to it in the video description. Despite the importance of cooking, the skill itself was not extremely popular, and that for a few reasons. There's of course the lack of the X option, which made the skill very click intensive. Then there also weren't as many cooking ranges as there are today in RuneScape Classic. The raw materials were also a lot harder and slower to obtain, and the absence of the Grand Exchange and the forums made it a lot more difficult to sell your cooked food. Although the more serious cooks were usually in contact with someone from the PvP community. Then another factor is that not many people had a high enough level to cook shark, which means that there was a high demand for it. However, until the release of the membership option in February of 2002, the best type of food that could be cooked was the swordfish. Later, shark and manta ray would follow. At high levels, cooking lobster provided around 90k to 110k XP per hour. Lobster was the most popular choice because many players did not have a sufficiently high level to cook better food without burning it too often. This might be a little bit surprising, but selling cooked food sometimes didn't involve any money because raw food and cooked food were often considered to be of the same value. This means that sometimes cooked fish would be traded for the same amount of uncooked fish so that the player could continue training the skill. Of course, that did not apply to food that was scarce or rare, such as shark for a long time. That's almost all about cooking in RuneScape 1. I kind of surprised myself here, because I didn't think I could say this much about cooking in RuneScape 1. Nevertheless, a fun fact to conclude with is that the first player to reach level 99 cooking was the famous RuneScape 1 player TKS, which she achieved in January of 2002. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, then consider checking out my other videos or subscribing if you haven't already. Thank you for watching. I am July and I hope that you will come back for more.